No British Prime Minister has ever been firebombed by a Ukrainian male model. Never mind 3 firebombs from 3 Ukrainian male models. Now look, I spoke about this extensively the other night. I'm not going to rehearse it all, but it has to be explained because either Keir Starmer just had a run of really bad luck that 3 Ukrainian male models allegedly firebombed 2 of his houses and 1 of his former cars. Some of those houses and the car in the same street that he used to live in. Now that can happen. It doesn't happen often, and it's never happened to a British Prime Minister before. But if it did just randomly occur, then he can count himself a very unlucky man indeed. On the other hand, if this is a conspiracy hatched in foreign lands against our Prime Minister, this is an attack on the United Kingdom. It's an act of terrorism of great moment, and we should be told if that is the case. If, on the other hand, all of this is the result of some personal imbroglio that the Prime Minister has gotten himself into with the alleged perpetrators, then we need to be told that also. Because if it's a terror attack, or if it is the result of a relationship or relationships gone bad, we need to know, because it goes to the heart of British governance. Now, Prime Minister's question time took place today at Westminster, and not a single MP had the guts to ask the obvious question. Prime Minister, have you ever met or have any personal relationship with any or all of the Ukrainian male models who stand accused, only accused, by the Metropolitan Police Anti-Terror Squad of having firebombed your properties? That is the question any Parliament with guts would have required the Prime Minister to answer it. Now, he might have been able, if you'll forgive the pun, to put all that to bed in a sentence. He might have been able to say that I have never met, nor have I any knowledge of the 3 people under arrest for the alleged firebombing of my properties. But he never got the chance to give that answer and stop all this speculation, because nobody had the guts to ask him. And no media has the guts to ask him either. First, there was 1 Ukrainian male model, aged 21. Then there was a 2nd Ukrainian male model, though the media have said he's Romanian. He was born in the western part of Ukraine. Who said so? He said so on his social media profiles. He looks like a male model too. Then there were 3 Ukrainian male models. Now, I've never met a Ukrainian male model. I've certainly never known of a collection of 3 of them. They look like a boy band from the early part of this century, something that would appear in front of Simon Cowell on The X Factor or Britain's Got Talent. I know nothing about the personal behaviour, peculiarities or predilections of the Prime Minister, and I'm tired saying I have no interest in it either. But if the Prime Minister does know these people, then it may be that he has left himself vulnerable, in which case the British Parliament and the British people have a problem, because a Prime Minister that is vulnerable to blackmail or other such heinous acts is a liability to the country. Now, Keir Starmer is a liability on multiple counts, some of them even to do with Ukraine. His blank check to Volodymyr Zelensky is now spreading its ugly, bloodied hand into Western Europe, as we predicted here on the mother of all talk shows. It would. It certainly would. We said all of these weapons with which you are flooding a European country will come back in the hands of terrorists and criminals. And some of the weaponry would be used to kill our own citizens on our own streets. Well, a very important Ukrainian dissident was murdered in cold blood in Madrid this very afternoon. Another Ukrainian dissident of some importance has already had 2 assassination attempts on him in the same European capital of Madrid. But the one today is a former member of the Ukrainian parliament, a former aide to the rightful president of Ukraine, who was ousted in a criminal coup d'etat beginning this war in 2014. He has been in Madrid for his protection. But protection came there none when he dropped his children off at the American language school on the outskirts of Madrid and was cruelly murdered in front of the children. He was shot 4 times in the body, and then as he lay on the ground, the final execution shot was administered to the back of his head. So Keir Starmer has, along with other European statesmen and women, conjured forth a veritable Frankenstein's monster in the regime that they have fostered and that they have buttressed and that they have stuffed with guns and money up their jacksie for these last 10 or more years. It was a very foolish policy. Starmer deserves to go for that reason only. But there are many, 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 many others. He just betrayed Britain's fishermen. He sold them out to the European Union. He's concluded a Swiss-style agreement with the European Union, which effectively, by one man, by the fiat of one prime minister, has reversed the decision of 17.4 million people in the Brexit referendum in 2016. It is an extraordinary thing that that wasn't raised meaningfully in today's Parliament either. Nigel Farage wasn't even there. He's out of the country on a pre-planned holiday when Keir Starmer took Britain back into the European Union. And he wants us to rejoice that in certain European countries we'll now be allowed to go through the e-gates. I don't know about you. I found it a small price to pay for Britain's independence. If only we'd used it. If only we'd used that independence to have a different economic policy, to have a different policy on all manner of things, including foreign affairs, if you'll forgive the pun. But we never used it. And that's down largely to the British Conservative Party. But if Keir Starmer, who has now given free movement of labour to all European Union citizens aged between 19 and 32 and their families. So we're back to the Polish baristas, we're back to the Slovak carpenters, we are back to our young people competing for jobs with a flood of young Eastern European, Central European labour. Now, you may want that. I don't myself. I want British carpenters and British baristas. But you may want that, in which case that should have been in the manifesto that Keir Starmer stood for election on. If we're going to reverse Brexit, there will have to be another referendum before we can rejoin the European Union, which we have now in a peculiar and creeping semi-detached way now begun to do. So Keir Starmer has betrayed our fishermen, like he betrayed our old age pensioners, like he betrayed the 1950s women, the so-called WASPy women, like he betrayed Britain's farmers, like he betrayed all those who thought that the Keir Starmer who wanted to ban Israel from FIFA in 2014, and I was in the hall when he stood in front of a banner, kick Israel out of FIFA, and he gave a stirring speech about the atrocities being committed by Israel in Gaza right then and there in 2014. Few of us knew that the day would come when he would declare himself, without qualification, a supporter of Israel, without qualification, a supporter of the nationalist ideology of Zionism, before he would say that Israel had a right to cut off food, water, medicine and electricity from 2.2 million people in the Gaza Strip. Of course, in the last couple of days, there's a coordinated effort in Paris, in Canada, in London, to distance themselves, to wash their hands of the genocide, of the Holocaust, which is currently, this minute, taking place in Gaza. But it's all a show. They are seeking to wash their hands, but all the perfumes of Arabia will not expunge that damned spot. They are forever stained with the blood of hundreds of thousands of mainly women and children in Gaza. They have armed it. They have used their air resources to gather information and promptly given it to the killers of the Israel occupation force. They have sold weapons to a country adjudged by the International Court of Justice to credibly have been committing genocide. They have shilled for it. They have backed it in every way possible. They think that a couple of days of disavowal might change people's minds about them, but I predict it will not. Anyway, my point is, there's not many left to betray. There's not many left to lie to. And that's why Keir Starmer's premiership is now at 13% approval rating, the lowest approval rating of any Prime Minister in recorded history. I'll tell you what, I happen to know that Labour MPs care about one thing above all else, and that is to remain Labour MPs. If these Labour MPs are not reading this writing on the wall and are not preparing to knife Starmer in the back as they all, with Starmer, knifed Corbyn in the back, I'll be surprised. And I'll be more than surprised if Keir Starmer sees the end of the summer in 10 Downing Street. Because these three alleged arsonists are due in court in June. What are they going to say? Well, assuming that they don't suicide themselves with paper towels while the cameras are off and the guards are asleep, they're going to have some explanation as to why they allegedly decided to firebomb no less than 3 properties of the British Prime Minister. They're going to say it was for political reasons, perhaps. They're going to say it was all random. They had no idea whose property, whose car it was. They're going to say something, aren't they, in their defense in June. I, for one, would rather have a British political class and a British media that faced up to the big, big questions that arise out of this affair and told us everything that they know. Now, we've got 2 of the biggest guests possible tonight. We've got Colonel Douglas Macgregor, the old warhorse who's forgotten more about military, political strategy and tactics than most of today's top brass have ever known. And we've got the wonderful hip-hop artist, political activist, and veritable Cambridge professor. He's not really a Cambridge professor. He's a professor of the streets, and he goes by the name of Low Key. So I'm going to leave them to discuss some of the main issues that are on the agenda tonight. I just have time to deal with one of them. It is being said that Israel is about to launch an attack on the nuclear reactors belonging to the Islamic Republic of Iran. This while Donald Trump is negotiating with the Islamic Republic of Iran for a new nuclear deal, which would avoid a war, lift sanctions, and dramatically improve the atmosphere in the Gulf. If Israel does this and launches what can only be said to be a kamikaze attack on Iran, for Iran is more than a match for Israel, short of Israel using its nuclear weapons and destroying every Saudi, every Emirati, every Qatari, along with millions of people in Iran. If Israel uses its nuclear weapon, destroying the world's economy in the Straits of Hormuz and in the oil and gas fields of the Persian Gulf, well, Israel will win. But short of using nuclear weapons, Iran is more than a match for Israel. Unless, of course, America is dragged into the attack, which would seem incongruous because Trump says the talks are going very well and that he has no problems with Iran keeping its nuclear energy plants and industry. Is it possible that Trump is lying about all this? That he knows that Israel is going to launch that attack? And that when Iran responds as it will with overwhelming ballistic force, that America will join the war? If so, I warn the GIs and the Marines right now. Iran is a vast country. It is currently 52.7 degrees centigrade. 52.7 degrees centigrade in Iran. You will have to fight your way through the hottest war, the hottest weather that you have ever known. And the Iranians will fight you on every street, in every town and city, in the mountains and in the fields, in the air and on the seas. It is a very foolish, idiotic, maniacal idea. So, President Trump, if it's not your intention to destroy all those countries from which you left dripping in gold just a few days ago, if it is not your intention to see all those countries and your airplane, which you haven't got yet, in flames and destroyed, you better rein in this Netanyahu fellow pretty damned quick. His soldiers opened fire in the West Bank today on multiple European diplomats, ambassadors, and parliamentarians at the Jenin refugee camp, which I know so well. They literally pointed their guns at these European panjandums and opened fire on them. This Netanyahu is out of control, President Trump. It's time you brought him down. This is the mother of all talk shows. Stay tuned.